news coming out of Indianapolis today if you're a Colts fan. Jason La Canfora joining the show right now, CBS Sports. Breaking news that Carson Wentz is going to be out 5 to 12 weeks. Jason, what does this mean for the Colts moving forward?
It means a lot of Jacob Eason in the short term, that's for sure. It means the odds of them having to send a one back to Philadelphia as part of the Wentz trade, which is obviously predicated on him taking at least 70% of the snaps. I would say that seems highly unlikely at this point. For Carson Wentz, it's just more questions about the durability and his body, where he is at this point in his career, what he can get back to realistically. I know this is sort of emanating from an injury that happened maybe as far back as high school, but the reality is he's had to endure a number of procedures now in a short period of time, and we're now talking a long period of time removed from him being at the top of his game when he looked like he was going to be, one of the top 6, 8, 10 quarterbacks in this league for a long time. Obviously, it continues a run of bad luck, excuse the pun, for Chris Ballard since he took over as general manager there, and Andrew Luck's career ending sooner than anybody anticipated. And now they continue to sort of play QB roulette, and it certainly could be a precursor to a transaction at some point. I wouldn't expect anything right away. But at some point, depending on how things go through camp and maybe a preseason game or so, you don't like to bring in a quarterback this late in the game, but we've seen teams do it, right? We saw Minnesota make a big trade for Sam Bradford when Teddy Bridgewater had a horrific injury years ago. And so maybe there is something out there for the Colts at some point. A lot of people will say Nick Foles. I don't think that's the direction that they probably want to go. Personally, I'd be looking at a Gardner Minshew, something like that, if I were going to make a trade in terms of age and upside and what you'd have to pay the guy. But for now, they're going to really sink in and see what Jacob Eason can do.
Jason La Canfora joins the show, CBS Sports NFL insider. Ben Lyons in for Rich on the Rich Eisen Show. I saw your tweet just now, Jason, and your timeline feels a little different than the one Brockman and I were coming up with. Before you jumped on, Chris and I were trying to do the math, and we said, okay, he's probably going to come back November 1st. You're talking about 8 months. Are we going to see him on the football field at all this season?
Did I say months? I meant weeks. If I said months, it was a mistake multitasking. No, I think 8 weeks. 2 months, 8 weeks is what we're probably. I mean, look, when they say 5 to 12 weeks, it's not going to be 5. That's just not how it goes. And especially with he just he was there for the spring, but I mean he had just started practicing, and I know he's been with Frank Reich before, but he didn't even really get to put his base on yet before this happened. So you're talking about a guy who now has to go on the shelf for a while. It's not like he's going to come back 3 days after surgery, have a practice, and and play the next week. So no, I think you're looking at 8 weeks, 2 months. Probably at a minimum. Like, I can't imagine this doesn't bleed well into the regular season and the best case scenario. And you're also, look, this is somebody who has a big contract. This is somebody who has dealt with a lot of setbacks in the past. So as much as you'd like to get him back as soon as possible, they're not going to be, trying to do anything warp speed, because he may be a guy who still is a part of your future beyond this year if you think he's still who you thought he could be when you made the trade. So yeah, I think conservatively, if they're saying 5 weeks to 3 months, you're going to be looking at least a couple of months.
What's crazy, Jason, is if I'm an Eagles fan this morning, I'm so upset because of the clause on the trade regarding the draft pick. He's making the Eagles worse still. He's still hurting the Eagles. How is that possible?
Stuff happens. Stuff happens. It's just the reality.
The reality of being
football.
an Eagles fan.
You know what I mean?
Think.
Like I mean, I don't think you can look at it that way as an Eagles fan. I mean, I get why you might, but like, there's a reason that the trade went down the way it did, right? It's because of everything that's transpired with him physically and what he played like last year. So, like, the Eagles can't make that trade banking on that one. No, I mean, that one has to be earned in part through luck and in part through productivity and just through health. So
it's just really remarkable that if you're an Eagles fan, you're sitting here today saying, wow, we're continuing to not get better because of Carson Wentz.
But like Carson Wentz needing a procedure, is that shocking to people?
Of course not. No, of course not.
Why it's part of the reason he's not there, right? It's part of the reason he hasn't lived up to the contract. It's part of the reason that outside of the Colts, that it's not like there was this super robust Carson Wentz market.
Availability is a skill set, Jason, that is often overlooked in sports and in life. How does this impact the rest of the teams in the division? Not just in terms of a possible trade scenario or anything like that, but just in terms of where the balance of power is now in the AFC.
For me personally, it's Tennessee and everybody else, and it was that way before. Now, I thought the Colts were the team that, because of their ability to play some defense, especially if they can get Darius Leonard back and sign long-term, and their ability to run the ball, and I know they lost, their left tackle, and there's some change there, but I still think up front that's a formidable unit that they've built. So, they were the next best team. I don't know what Carson Wentz was going to do. I don't know that anyone could say they had built a model that told them with absolute certainty what a 2021 Carson Wentz was going to look like in terms of games played and, yards, touchdowns, everything else. So, I think they were a bit of a wild card before, and they still are now. And then the other two, come on. Jacksonville and Houston have a ways to go. So I don't know that it necessarily swings the balance of power. I think certainly they probably emphasize running the ball and sort of going a little more old school even more than they may have previously or might have under Wentz. But I don't like... I have no idea what a full Carson Wentz season would look like. And again, I don't know that you can bake into your cake a full Carson Wentz season.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.